right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Friday. Welcome to the end of the week. Welcome to fun time. Today, today we're going to be building something in Python using ChatGPT. And we're going to be tying a couple of different pieces together. But before we go ahead and get started with that, just a real quick update. I know we had a week off while I was traveling. I also took an extra day off, which incorporated a Friday for personal reasons. And so it's been a couple of weeks since we've been back on this stream. Happy to get back into the rhythm of things. I do have a conflict in a couple of hours, customer meeting. So I'm going to have to make sure that I dip out after a couple of hours. I will be relying on you all to make sure that I'm watching the clock for my actual job, not this fun time stuff. Next week, we're going to have a guest speaker on here, one of my teammates. He's going to be doing a lot of Terraform automation. So we're going to be talking about some of the Terraform providers that are out there available for the Palo Alto Network's firewalls, specific to certain cloud environments to help you kind of get off the ground and running with them. So I'm hoping that that session, everything goes well. I've had some technical difficulties on my side, just here internally with doing presentations. I live in Texas, and for some reason over the last couple of years, we have a ton of power outages. And so I'm hoping today that we don't run into those problems. Even with the UPS backup, I don't have everything backed up, and so effectively I'll lose connection. So fingers crossed, we'll be good. Okay, so again, today we're going to be building, well, first of all, before we get it started, let's kind of share something that I published just as I was walking out the door for my vacation a couple of weeks ago. It's this project here called Pan-GPT, and the idea is exactly as it suggests right here. The idea here is that this little piece of software, this little Python script, is going to be set up in a way that it can receive HTTP messages from a firewall. They will be formatted as JSON and have all the contents of specific error messages that would show up within a firewall logs. Things like decryption errors, mobile user VPN client connects to errors, configuration issues, system alarms, really anything. And we can set up a firewall in a way to where it forwards out these messages in a very specific data format and structure. And something can receive it and make sense of it, and then usually that was a human responsibility, right? But in this time, we're setting up our Python script to be the receiver of these messages. And what we need to do is need to look inside of the payload, pull out all the relevant and specific information that we're interested in, and forward that over to ChatGPT for troubleshooting. And what I wanted to have happen is that, like, it's not enough for us to just send a request to ChatGPT. We obviously want to receive the response and be able to have it broadcasted somewhere, not within a web browser, because that kind of defeats the purpose of this being like an event-driven automation. Who's to say the web browser would be open at all times? There's just we needed to get the message somewhere. So in my case, we had built a Slack bot, I think the week before I published this, and I wanted to use that kind of Slack bot mechanism of posting messages to the channel. So effectively, three, let me count here. Yeah, 3 pieces of components within this, right? You got your firewall. That's the source of the information. It's what's creating the log messages based on a specific event. It sends it to our Python script here, which is built around Fast API. And then once this Python script receives the message, it's going to pull apart the relevant information and it's going to forward it over to ChatGPT. And then ChatGPT is going to give us a response back, and we're going to send that response over to Slack. So actually 4 pieces. Which piece did I miss here? Pan-OS, Fast API. Yeah, Slack. I forgot to mention the Slack part within the description here. But yeah, that's what's happening. All right. And I had set this up. I was pretty happy with it. By the way, there's another one. If you use Fortinet, this young chap right here was kind enough to do something very similar with Fortinet. He calls it Forti-GPT. I could not believe that had not been trademarked already. So go ahead and give this young chap a look. It looks like he's going a bit further. He's building like a React front-end user interface. So that's his mechanism of getting like the response data back. But yeah, if you live in the Fortinet world, go check this one out. This one seems like it's being well developed. In our case, though, we're working on Pan-OS, and so this is what we're going to be working with. Pretty cool. Sound good? All right. There's since I published this, I've got it running as Docker containers, and since doing so, I've actually altered the JSON payload that gets sent from the firewalls. And so what I need to do is I need to update this application in order to understand the new structure of the payload, because what I'm getting in Slack is kind of all over the place. Let me just show you what that looks like. So here is my Slack channel that's set up to get these alerts. So right now, anytime there's, in this case, let's just talk about like the use case. We got an SSL decryption issue, right? So effectively a web browser is trying to go to a site, but the firewall is doing a man-in-the-middle decryption and is handling as kind of acting as like a broker for the TLS connection so that it can inspect the traffic. But anytime that workflow fails, either because the client doesn't accept the certificate or any other the type of reason, a log message is going to show up. A decryption log message will show up in the firewall. And again, this gets forwarded to our Fast API server, which then grabs the information, sends it to ChatGPT, receives the response, and then posts it here in Slack. Now, as you can see, there's a couple of problems here. One is that the messages aren't formatted the way that I want them to. I do not like that. There is also, it's too much information. So we need to trim out, we need to tell ChatGPT to give us the data formatted for Slack, and also be very succinct with what type of data is actually shared, because getting this wall of text that's just going to make people ignore it whenever this message comes in. So that's one of the problems. I had another problem on here too regarding VPN, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Let's see if I can. Let's type in global protect. Okay, so here is one regarding, yeah. So here's one regarding a mobile user VPN connection issue, right? Not the decryption use case that we just talked about, something different. And the problem that I have here is that there's some information, like my firewall host name, the public IP I'm okay with, the private IP I don't know if I'm okay with, but there's some sensitive information, right? User, the desktop name, the firewall serial number. There's some information that I don't want ChatGPT to have. Oh yeah, also the domain name. I think the domain name's in here as well. It's not. Okay, good. But I want to be able to scrub out some of the sensitive data before we send it over to ChatGPT. So that'll be also something that we look at doing here. All right, and let's see. Let's go ahead and see this in action. So one of the wonderful things about the Linux desktop is that you have to load if you're going to do this kind of decryption, the firewall is going to have a certificate, and it's not enough to just load the certificate into the Linux operating system's trust store, because each browser has its own trust store for certificates that it uses. It does not use the system's trust store. It's hard for me to say today. The reason why this is good news is that I can effectively use one browser with the certificate loaded within there, so everything goes through, and I can have another browser where the certificate is not loaded and things break. And that's effectively what I have loaded here on my Firefox browser. If I look into the certification, where are you at, buddy? Here we can see that the certificate came from my actual firewall. It's not the real certificate from iCar. So here's the organization, here's the common name. So this is my firewall. This effectively is the fact that it's trusted by my browser means that the TLS connection between my client and the remote website is successfully being decrypted by the firewall. I have it set up to where only 2 websites are within my policy, my firewall policy, are actually being decrypted and inspected. And that is iCart and that is Facebook. So we have those 2 websites. Everything else is just completely ignored for decryption. Now, this is great because, again, I mentioned each browser has like its own specific web store that effectively allows me to say, if I load up Chrome now and I try to look at the same website, I can see that Chrome does not accept the certificate from my firewall because it's not loaded within Chrome's local certificate store. So this is great because now I can create decryption errors on demand. If I reload this browser here, for instance, I should eventually get a log message. There we go. So I've effectively created an event to where my access, here you can see the event just came up here. My access was effectively told that there's a TLS issue here, and we've effectively sent the message over to ChatGPT, and now we got the response. Here we can see the response isn't so bad, but it's still got a lot of information. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. So we're getting 2 logs. One of them is not, it's almost formatted the way I want it. I want the message formatted in a way that sticks out to the user. So I was thinking about using these code blocks. However, ChatGPT is, well, the response is a little hit or miss. You can see some of it is in clear text and some of it was in this blocked code text. So I'd like to fix that. That's definitely one. I've also got, this is like right on point. This is kind of what I'm looking for. I only want this to be sent to my Slack channel. But as you can see, there's a lot that are going here. So need to figure out a way of kind of reducing the amount of messages. All right, so let's dig into the code here. There we are. All right, so looking at the source code for a second. Again, I have this packaged as Docker files. I'm running this as a Docker container. There's really not a whole lot of things going on inside of this container. I'm basing it around Alpine, so super small Linux distribution. I'm installing some Python requirements. I'm also adding some environmentals. So what I'm doing is I'm copying environmental values that are on my host machine into the build process of the Docker container, so that whenever the Docker container comes up, it has my specific passwords and keys and those types of things. In this case, I need 4 separate arguments. One of them is the bot for the Slack. The other is the app token for Slack. The other is the Slack channel itself. And then I have the ChatGPT API token. which you can receive once you're signed up as a user. Somewhere in your preferences, there will be a section there for your API key. Fairly intuitive. Let's look at the actual Python script though. There's not a whole lot to this, so let's try to see if we can't jump right through it. I need to change, let's see, the set out of workspace layer. There we go. Hoping some of these linting issues go away. It looks like yeah. So my Python virtual environment wasn't loaded, so it had a bunch of squigglies. All right, where do we go from here? All right, here's our 3 big imports. Fast API, in order to handle the REST API functionality to receive the messages from the firewall. We also have the Slack SDK that we're importing. This will enable us to publish to a Slack channel under the username of our bot. And then the ChatGPT SDK, which I was really surprised is super duper easy in order to get something up and running with. So this is it. This is the whole script. It's like is it 166 lines right now? Let's kind of tear this apart just a bit. Let's see. Can I zoom in? Cannot zoom in. All right, so the very first thing that we're doing is we're instantiating an instance of the Fast API web server. That is as simple as just importing it and then calling app equals Fast API. Then we are updating some parameters of the ChatGPT SDK that we're going to be working with. One, we're passing in our API key. If you don't have this set up as an environmental, you would just paste it in as a big string right here. And I'm also setting which version of the ChatGPT API I want to work with. I still don't have access to ChatGPT 4 API just yet, so we're going to be relying on 3.5. Creating an instance of our Slack application. This will again enable us to post to the Slack channel, and creating a handler for that connection. This is deprecated. I know this is deprecated, but there's a better way of doing this. At least the documentation tells me there's a better way of doing this. But effectively, I wanted to have the ability to say, hey, whenever I start up this Fast API server, I want you to set the Open API schema to none. So not necessarily something that I want a user to have to initiate. I just want that to be auto-created at the none. And the reason why I'm doing that is that I have the opportunity here of passing in an Open API schema. So if you wanted, you could also get the Open API schema and load this into something like Postman or whatever kind of REST API software that you're using. And so you'll get the full schema and know exactly kind of what parameters to pass and whatnot. So all you need to do that is to do a get operation to the API and do a /openapi.json, and that will download the file for you. All right, now to the ChatGPT goodies. Let's look into this and figure out what all's going on here. I have 2 sets of endpoints to talk to. The first is Pan-GPT /decryption. And this is where my decryption logs are going to be forwarded. I have another for Pan-GPT /global protect, and this is where mobile user connection logs are going to be sent to. The way that this looks like in the firewall, let's look at the actual policy here. Device HTTP Pan-GPT. All right. So the first thing to look at here is the server profile. Here's the name of my, just a cosmetic name of my my server that's running the Pan-GPT. The IP address, protocol is HTTP. It looks like it's sending out on port 8080, and it's going to be using a post method. Now, when I look into the decryption logs here, So here's all the different types of logs that I can send. Hey, GT. Yeah. Hey, we just gave your project a shout out. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. I am sticking with Fast API for now. I noticed that you had, I think you did some React work. I think, yeah, you're adding a React JS front end. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll definitely be checking out what you're doing. My React skills are terrible. I invested a lot of time in developing my Angular skills, which have not paid off at all. So I'm really excited to see kind of where you go with this. Let's take a peek at your login screen here. So this login screen, is this? Oh, that's right. You're okay. You switched to React front end for the UI. Yep. So the user logs into a specific firewall, and then what happens after they log in? Does the web app connect to like its logs? Like how do things take place after this? You probably have this documented somewhere. Or are you running literal commands? Troubleshooting assistant. No, I could test. Oh, I don't have a Fortinet. God bless America. We'll gather debug output from your firewall and send it to ChatGPT for analysis. So do you select which debugging information that you send, or does it happen on the fly? Is it like listening for responses? Like how does this take place? I love this. This is awesome. Suppose I could spin it up even without the Fortinet, just to take a peek at the UI. Basically, log in, choose a platform category from the left-hand side, for example, VPN. It shows the tunnels. You click a tunnel that's down, and it sends the commands to the firewall. NetMiko for SSH commands. Really interesting. Really interesting. Okay, so the UI, it's going to present you those VPN connections, red, yellow, green, and you'll have the ability to click into one of them. And based on that event, the clicking event, specific firewall troubleshooting commands are going to be sent to that specific tunnel interface, and that's going to generate a response from the firewall, and then you forward that to ChatGPT, and then you get the response back within the UI. I think I understand. You can peek at the server folder and look at the script. It'll make more sense. Package, okay. Alrighty. So, oh, Express. Yay. That's what's nice about Angular. I'm sorry, that's what's nice about React, is that like you can build all, well, it's nice, and what kind of sucks is that like you can customize the stack how you see fit. I did not have that luxury in Angular, but to the fact everything was provided out of box, and so that's kind of nice as well. But always good to see some Express. So there's some VPN routes, performance routes, connectivity routes. Let's look into VPN routes. Routes, VPN routes, the scripts folder, and ChatGPT prompts. Okay, cool. Will do. Yep. for some reason, I'm more fascinated with the web server component, so please stand by. Let's get into the ChatGPT. Let's look at VPN tunnel down. Ah, look at this. All right, so here's the ChatGPT prompt. Let's look at the raw. The senior network firewall engineer. You know, I did the same thing. Kind of doing like a role play thing. You have been assigned to investigate a VPN down issue on a FortiGate firewall device. You provided the debug. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay, based on your analysis of the debug, you should be identified potential. Okay, so I think this is where you have an advantage for sure. Because in my world, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to send this to a Slack channel. And it sometimes it works really well. Like sometimes you get like some really pretty output, and sometimes you just get a wall of text. And the issue here is that ChatGPT is just being really inconsistent with its formatting capabilities. Like this is good. Like I'm quite pleased with this. Right? It's kind of like an offhands type of thing. You don't need to. You really just need to sit back and passively receive these alerts from ChatGPT. But sometimes the formatting is just, it's terrible. So I definitely need to work on that. I do like the idea that you could do this, maybe not like event driven, but rather a proactive troubleshooting, which I believe is exactly what you're talking about doing here. Yeah, Express is basically like Fast API. 100%, man. We're making our own demise. Sure. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm ready to go do something else. To be honest with you, I'm cool with it. Okay, here's the actual Python script. So really interesting. Does Fortinet? Does the FortiGate firewall have like an API or SDK? Is NetMiko more of like kind of can solve any type of use case, and so it's kind of the tool that's always picked? I've never tried to automate a FortiGate. So all right, so we're passing in some username, password, and prompt. Phase 1 and phase 2. So this is probably for the firewall troubleshooting. So debug. Yeah, VPN tunnel down. Got it. I wonder if you provide a Jinja template, is it smart enough to follow it? Oh, it's a good question. I feel like probably the best option would to be just... Yeah, good question. FortiGate has a good API as well. Cool. Yeah, sometimes I've seen like in the Cisco world, it sometimes just makes sense to just kind of roll the sleeves up and get down on some NetMiko parsing, just because like a deficiency or something along those lines, or sometimes it's just easier for people to work with. All right, so okay. Get VPN. Okay, so here's where. All right. Okay, so I shouldn't have clicked that, but so get VPN IPsec tunnel. Okay, yeah, this makes sense. Diagnose phase 1, phase 2, and the connection handler. So you run this script, passing in the parameters, and then the body comes back to you. Or how does the response here, how is this consumed? How are you tying these two things together? Because this will totally run, like if I run this locally, this will execute just fine. Where does the web server execute this, and how does it get the response back? completion models. If you look at the route, the HTTP response is the output of the NetMiko. Okay, let's go back and look at that route. Get tunnel list, router get. API v2 monitor. Okay, got it. Ah, look at this. Python scripts, VPN, tunnel down, device 1. Here's the host. Here's all the arguments that get passed. Okay, so whenever someone runs a post to here and they pass in, excuse me, when they pass in the phase 1 name and phase 2 name into the body of the request, those constants get put into the arguments here where you already had things like username, port. Okay, got it. Got it. So that's saved as command. Okay, I haven't seen this done before. Spawn command shell equals true. This is interesting. So here you're just basically taking this entire string right here, and I'm assuming this is where you spawn an instance of that. Really cool. I haven't seen. I don't spend too much time in the JavaScript world, unfortunately, but I have yet to see an instance like this where a Python script is called through a kind of like a shell session, basically, within. That's really interesting. So where does the NetMiko, where does the libraries exist? Obviously they exist in the host, or did you wrap this in a container or something like that? It's like a sub process or OS in Python. Got it. Yeah, super cool. Love it, man. I love it. Thanks to ChatGPT for I'm new to JavaScript too. Yeah. Thanks JavaScript. Thanks ChatGPT. Making me good in all kinds of languages I didn't know. Really slick. All right, so I know this is good, man. This is good stuff. I really like this. The process, where does that get referred? Let's scroll out just a little bit here. Okay, so process standard out data, output, and then you add the data. Where does output get pulled? Okay, you send the output right there. Wow. Really slick, man. I really enjoy where you're going with this. Okay, you got a Docker file. Very cool, man. Thank you for making that Docker file. It definitely makes it super easy to consume. So your thought process here is to effectively make like a troubleshooting bot at the end of the day, right? Like someone has to know which firewall to log into, and they have to have like some kind of awareness, like, hey, I need to perform this task. I need to check the status of an interface, check BGP, check VPN, and so you're basically removing all of the CLI semantics required. You're also providing like an assistant bot to do some troubleshooting based on the log messages, which is going to help a ton of people that are like at the beginning of their career, or maybe they're moving from one vendor to the next, and or maybe they have to manage multiple environments, and like this could be effectively extended. Since you're using NetMiko underneath the sheets, I mean, like, you're not really limited to the Fortinet in this case. Man, I wonder if there's a way. To do like an auto discovery of the host operating system when you pass in username, password. Let's say it does SSH, like do a auto discovery of the host operating system, so that you could effectively cover multiple operating systems, and you'd have like a different directory for some for Cisco ASA, some for FTDs, some for Juniper, some for Palo, whatever. But at the end of the day, well, you wouldn't call it Forti-GPT though. Then the name would have to change. Let's see. I just need more troubleshooting. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like a debug parser and summarization tool. Cool. How to extend it with 50 firewalls? Would you have an individual connection to each firewall or storing the data in some database? Well, I can't speak to, and I won't speak to this solution, but I'm wondering if you've got 50 firewalls, then you're likely going to have some kind of management system. So I'm wondering if we could see this talk to like a management system that's monitoring all those 50 firewalls. Different pages, like page 1 for Fortinet, page 2 could be for Cisco. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Maybe a drop down menu, right? Maybe like a drop down menu to say after hostname or IP, maybe you have it, maybe you just say like device name IP, then you have a drop down menu for like what vendor. And then based on the vendor, like it could be an API token, it could be username password for a web server or for, I don't know. There's all kinds of different ones. I'm thinking about. But for the question about like for 50 firewalls, I'm wondering like if it makes sense to connect this to the firewall management system itself. I don't know what's the Fortinet management. You have Splunk. Okay, so all right, so now we're talking about something Hermit like. So let's make sure that I don't muddy the waters more than I already have. What we're looking at is Forti-GPT is a mechanism of logging into a firewall and then presenting the user with some prepackaged troubleshooting steps for a specific thing. I think what you're talking about, yeah, Forti Manager, thank you. I think what you're talking about when you talk about Splunk, for instance, Splunk to me is not like proactive, hey, log into the firewall and look at something. It's more like the firewall created a log and sent it to Splunk. Splunk's got the data and it will receive all these events. So if you wanted to build an integration with Splunk in the mix, right? Splunk's collecting it from your 50 firewalls anytime there's a specific event. That's more of like an event-driven automation, which is more in line with kind of what I've done on this side, where we're receiving log messages as they come in, and that's the execution. That's the mechanism to trigger the automation component. So if you wanted to, in this case, if the logs are being received by Splunk, I don't know if, I'm sure Splunk has an SDK, but I don't know if it's set up in a way that you could like stream the log messages as they come in. But my thought process is like find a way of interfacing with Splunk and then having like maybe some pre-canned queries. I'm sure you have them already kind of in your mind within your Splunk environment as to like, here's like log messages for this type, here's log messages for these types. These are like pre-canned queries. Maybe it's already developed by a plugin that's available in Splunk. Just find a way of getting access to that data. The problem I keep running into with this thought is that if the firewall sent the message to Splunk from like the event processing perspective, that's like start and end, right? So it's either you insert something in between the two, which I don't really think would be a good solution, or your solution attaches to Splunk and then tries to get the log messages in a respectable fashion, either polling is like the best thing that I can think of in this case. So maybe like your integration would be you build like a something similar to this, right? Where you have like a front end, and you're basically front ending the Splunk log database, and then you have some kind of pre-canned actions. Yeah, not really a slam dunk in my mind right now. I might be missing an idea, but I would be interested if FortiManager had the capability of proxying commands to a local firewall and then giving the response data back. If that was the case, you wouldn't really have a value for Splunk in that case, right? You would just use this as like the front end to interface with FortiManager and have the commands sent to the downstream firewall and then get the response data back. That would definitely be something I could probably scale to those 50 firewalls that you talked about. Very, very cool. Thank you for continuing to develop this. I am, oh, how dare me. Let me star this bad boy. Thank you. I'm definitely going to keep up with what you're doing here. All right, let's get back into this environment. Excuse me. Let's see where we at with time. All right, I got a little bit over an hour. If I look into the log message that's being sent by the firewall, if I look at the decryption logs, yeah, here's the structure that I'm sending into ChatGPT. So it sends it to /Pan-GPT/decryption, and here's the actual payload. That's pretty good. I do have another that's a little bit more of a complex structure for Ansible EDA, which is Ansible's new event-driven Ansible. I'm doing the same exact use case just for a different technology here, and I've got a lot better structure to this data. I'm wondering if I should port this over into ChatGPT, but let's just pause on that for now. All right, so when I send this to the decryption, here's some basic information. When I send this to the Fast API receiver, the log message is going to be received. The body is going to be automatically converted from JSON into Python. So I will immediately have a Python dictionary of the log message. It's one of the things that makes working with Fast API so enjoyable. Just the ability to just convert that JSON to Python just like that. Did you see the announcement with ChatGPT 4 plugins now? We may be able to create a plugin right on the site that logs into the firewall and gathers the output and gives you a response. So I'm glad you asked. I did see the plugins, plugin ChatGPT 4, and I'll tell you, like, my initial reaction was, oh my god, please slow down. This is getting out of control. I did see some of these. I think my big takeaway from this was that since ChatGPT is built on a specific data set that's, you know, up to a certain timestamp, it's not able to get more live information. And my thought process is that, like, the plugin would be like a good mechanism of getting live data, kind of like what Bing does, right? Bing's got the ChatGPT and the data set within there, but it also has like live search information that it can use to kind of colorize some context whenever you need to draw outside of the lines of what ChatGPT knows. But I did not look into specific use cases though. Every damn week is something. I'll tell you, this last week was crazy. I feel like this should become an AI channel. Not just like ChatGPT releasing .4 or 4. Also Midjourney, which is the image creation. I use that thing almost every day. They released their version 5 last week as well. So everything is like, it's going bananas and it's going really, really fast. anything to distract me from what's happening in the world right now, like I'm good with, and this provides me with quite a bit of distraction. Plugins, ChatGPT 4. Yeah, I'm really interested in this. So you're saying that the plugin on the site could log into the firewall. How could that happen? Because the service is deployed as a SaaS solution. How would it be able to talk to an internal firewall? And good God, would I ever want that to happen? I don't know. I don't know. Plugins. Let's look at this. This is going to be ridiculous. Oh my God. If I worked in a call center, I'd be terrified right now. Or I'd be thrilled that something was going to do my job for me. Wow. Do you think AI will replace developers? I don't. Replace is a strong word. I think supplement might be a better phrase. Will there be jobs lost? Yeah, absolutely. Will it happen in the developer space? Maybe. Because, you know, kind of like I view this as a tool, just like I view Adobe Photoshop as a tool, as a platform to enable image creation from different forms of mediums. I see this as being one of those things as well. Oh, Adobe just released their own AI as well. Was it Firefly? I think they have the benefit of relying on their Adobe stock images. Sure, let me join the beta. Oh man, am I ever gonna? All right. Okay, let's do it. Request access, please. All right, let me let me do this on my other browser, where you guys can't see me enter my email. Let's see. Design, video editing. Yep. Art. Okay, I've signed up on that as well. So we will see. We will see. So text to image, text styles. Oh, that's nice. Recolor vectors. That's kind of cool, actually. I can see if you work a lot in vector art, having the ability to just kind of repaletize a workspace is I can definitely see value in that. I was just thinking out loud. They said you can create your own plugins. Yep, just feed it the latest Palo Alto admin guide, and you can have an expert on Palo Alto firewalls. Oh my God. If you want goosebumps, look at this company is doing it, called Adapt AI. Basically, any task on machine. Is it Adapt? Yeah. Sure. Let me just sign up for anything. I'm caught up in the AI hype. All right, guys. All right, riddle me this. All right, in order for me to sign up here, I got to select some bicycles. These are not bicycles, though. What do I do? Let's try that. There we go. Confirm humanity. Wonderful. Another wait list. Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm about to be overwhelmed with all this stuff. Let's do text to image. Oh, come on. Is this all right. We'll see if my access gets blessed next time, but this is pretty okay. Let's look at this. I guess we're not going to do any developer work today. I might just be watching, looking at plugins the whole time. All right, what do we got here? Plugin store. So do we need a way of getting published into that? In the white paper for GPT-4, they gave it money and hired someone on Task Runner to complete the CAPTCHA. I don't know if you heard about that. No. Oh, that's terrifying. Oh, that's terrifying. Oh. Oh, that's not good. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's not good. We're already getting out of pocket real quick with this. Okay. All right. Okay. Pretty awesome. I'm thinking about, like, my thought process here is, again, how to publish your own plugin. How do you get that published within a store? Since authentication is currently using Google or Microsoft, I'm wondering, like, how long before Microsoft offers this as a hosted plugin store based on SSO login. So you log in to ChatGPT 4 with your SSO, and then you immediately see like the plugins that are installed for your specific administrative domain, which would be like ChatGPT 4 or Pan-GPT or Forti, whatever. And automatically, oh, that would be so good. Oh, that would be so good. The person it hired asked if you were a bot, and it lied to the human and said, "No, I have a vision disability." Oh my god. Oh, that's the funniest thing I've heard all week. That's good. That is hilarious. That is terrifying. That's some Skynet stuff, man. What have we done? Okay. All right. Sorry for all the distractions. Let's let's get into trying to make this a little bit better in the remaining hour that we have together. So here's what I'm doing on my side. Whenever a decryption error comes in, right? We parse the JSON data. We've got all these key value pairs of the specific information, and then we're doing another role play thing. Right? I want you to role play as a bot that specializes within the network and cybersecurity industry, specifically with Palo Alto Networks PAN-OS firewalls. You will be fed a JSON formatted log message from the firewall, and it will be tasked with troubleshooting the decryption log below. Your response will be detailed troubleshooting information. I think this is what I need to kind of amend a bit. Include affected users, devices, and any other information that would be helpful to the user. Your response will not reference yourself. It will be without pronouns. It will be written in a third-party message as a Slack message. The response needs to be structured in a Slack block format, as it will be sent to a user in a Slack message. I'm thinking that I cannot trust it to do this this correctly. So for context, a Slack, if you weren't here for the last one, API slack.com or Slack block. builder. Block kit. Oh heavens, where are you? Building, where's the, there we go. So if you want to control the formatting of a message that's posted in Slack, your best option is to get it formatted for the block kit. We did this earlier when we built the Slack bot to interact with, I think, Prisma. I forgot what we built the bot for. Building too many things, but we had to build like the UI and all those goodies, and that's where the block kit comes from. All right, once we've got that message here, so here's our request. So here's where we send the request to ChatGPT, and the response comes back to us. We pull out the interesting information. We do a little debugging for local console. Then we use the toDict recursive to iterate again through that dictionary, get the message. Here's where I think I need to format my question to Slack just a little bit better. So the type is going to be markdown. The text message content. I'm wondering if I should wrap this as a string, make this an F string, and no, that's not going to work. This is not going to work. All right, we'll have to figure that part out. Then we post the response to Slack and wait for the 200 to come back. And that effectively creates what we see, what we've got going on here. Again, we've got a little bit too much information, so let's start by kind of trimming this up a little bit. All right, am I on the host that's running this container? I am. Okay, wonderful. So here's the Docker container of our application running on port 8080. It forwards to Fast API on port 80. Does it for both IPv4 and IPv6, and there we go. Let's activate our Python virtual environment. And let's look at our invoke script. So I do have an invoke script here just to make life just a little bit easier for us. It will build the container. If you're running an ARM processor, it can build in an ARM. The default is to build it for x86. So I've got one for here for running it local. Do you know if network automation interviews include a coding whiteboarding session? I feel like I'm relying on GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT too much. I understand what it writes, but I suck at syntax. So yeah, I've screened for network automation jobs in the past. The best interview process I had was, it was more around a pseudocode type of situation, right? So the interviewer wanted to understand that, or wanted to make sure that I understood basic workflows of like, here's a specific task. How do you build something for this? Well, you got to think about, you know, are we going to back into this with a database? If so, you know, it was all pseudocode. It wasn't like checking syntax and stuff like that. But that, honestly, network automation roles that I've interviewed for, my GitHub repo was basically the application itself, or my resume itself. Once they kind of see the work that you've done and some of the things that you've built, they should have a pretty good understanding of whether or not you know what you're doing. So I like to make my GitHub repo my resume. It's why I have I build so many things, not to jump ship, but again, just to kind of validate that I know what I'm doing. Okay, that's easy. I usually break down the problem into mini problems and tackle it that way. Yeah, so do exactly what you're doing, but be able to talk through your thought process, right? A lot of us in the technical world really struggle with being able to talk and communicate effectively. So, and especially like in a pressurized situation like a job interview. Yeah, that can be pretty pretty stressful. So yeah, my suggestion is to just to make sure that you know how to communicate your ideas and your thoughts as you walk through this. Okay. All right, good to go. Then cruising, yeah. Yeah, just go in there and just blow them away. I'd be interested in what kind of role you're applying for, because to be fair, I work in sales. I talk with customers. I love talking to customers. I love talking to you guys about this type of stuff. So for me, sales is like the perfect world because I get hands-on technical and I get to chat and meet new people that are doing these types of things. And I really, really enjoy that. I'm not a professional developer. And so I would imagine a professional developer interviewing process would be quite a little bit different. They'd probably be looking for specific things. But in my case, it's, hey, do you know this technology? Can you talk to it? You know, those types of things. And so I think I may have had an easier experience than some. The privilege of working in sales. Okay, so I've got this little invoke thing which will build our containers whenever we need to make changes. So let's go ahead and start making some changes. Let's change out the request here to ChatGPT. I'm gonna let's look at what we've done over here on the ChatGPT prompts. Let's get a general idea again about what you're suggesting. You've been provided with the debug output of the device. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, I think we're on the same line here. I think what I need to do, your response will be terse troubleshooting information. Infected users, devices. Okay. I think I want that. I'm still struggling with the response. All right, let's just walk through this workflow. So I changed one word in my script from detailed to terse. So what we'll do is we'll do an invoke build. We'll rebuild our container here. Oh, I guess I never built the container locally. Okay. I want a network automation role. Currently at network engineering, 10 years networking. Looking at the connectivity prompt, I was able to give all of that text. Yeah. So for a network automation role, like this being like your day in and day out, I would expect you to understand not just like the building of the automation itself. I would be looking at you as a potential teammate. So I'd want to make sure that you know how to use GitHub properly, that you do things like pull requests and branches and you add helpful comments. Let's actually judge you right now while we're here. Let's get into here. So you got a couple of branches. All right, that's a good start for sure. Your GitHub comments, code formatting fix, title fix, I think that's sufficient. But yeah, I mean, like I would be interested if I was interviewing you to be on my team. I'd want to know, you know, are you helping others with your comments? Are you using pull requests? Are you doing your releases? Are you just basically dotting your I's and crossing your T's? I like to focus in a lot on making things really simple. So I look to see if someone knows how to use Docker properly, if they can build their own container images. I'd want to know if you provide like shell scripts or make files or invoke scripts, something to make it just generally easier for everyone to use. That's what I'd be looking for as well. Let's see. I don't know if they increase the allowed tokens. No. I lacked on the FortiGate one with proper comment. You don't like to be judged live. Yes. Don't worry about it. Oh yeah. So again, like this is like, if you're working by yourself, this is totally acceptable. And you know that is totally acceptable. But when you work with a larger team, you know, you just got to make sure that you do those things properly. And you don't do what GitHub did today, or yesterday by publishing your SSH private key pairs to a public repo. Do not do that. So yeah, I'd be more interested in stuff like that. Do you understand pipelines? Do you know how to do a CI/CD with GitHub Actions or GitLab? Do you know the value that that could or could not bring for network automation? Some things ported from the software developer world, like CI pipelines, have kind of a mixed bag as far as applicability in the network automation world. There's a lot of buzz around CI/CD from the software world. So immediately when we think of automation, we think, oh, well, that's got to be a really important thing for network automation. It's like, could be, but most of the time it's not. So we'll do invoke local. This is going to give me a conflict. So Docker PS, let's stop the gifted. There we go. Let's stop our container. All right, container is done. The container should be, yeah, container is dead. It's removed. So we'll do invoke local. This will run the container again. And it's running it in the foreground. Interesting. Okay. All right, let's try this again. Let me clear the screen a little bit here. Just gonna make some fake way of adding some white space here, and then the letter W. All right, so we got some white space. Let's try to reload this again. That should kick off the log message. This time now we should be receiving it in terse. There we go. Okay, so now we get to see all the goodies live. What do we get back over here? All right, good. This is better. A known firewall. Okay. Description of firewall. Firewall received a fatal certificate unknown from the client while attempting to decrypt traffic. This is good. This is like everything. This is almost everything. Actually, I think this is, man, this is really close. But this other stuff, yeah, not so much. I think the problem that I have here is that I'm sending all decryption logs over, and I should be restricting, because all we did was refresh the browser once. How many messages got generated from that one thing? We got one message, two message, three, here's 4, here's 5, there's 6, the response, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 messages, 14, there's number 14. So 15. So there's all kinds of log messages that are being sent. One event just created a storm. So the proper way of doing this would be to put some kind of controls. Where is my firewall? There we go. To put some constraints into what we actually send over, because this is it's a little bit too much for us. Let's look into profile decryption. Oh, wrong one. Payload decryption. The other project I did is more real world. My Cisco ZTP Flask Netbox project is what I think you're looking for. Shows more of a workflow beginning to end. Let's check that out. Wrong browser. There it is. All right. Ooh, images. That helps. That helps for sure. Libra NMS for monitoring. Router requesting a script from the API to run inside its guest shell. Script sends an HTTP post containing the router's serial number to another API endpoint, triggering the script that uses the serial number to locate the device inside of NetBox and generate a configuration based on its configuration context details. Okay. So in NetBox, you've got the device already staged. It's associated to a site. It's got a config context that was either inherited or just assigned to it upon creation inside of NetBox. When the firewall or when the router comes online, how do you get it to request the script? How do you, is there a way to, because I know that iOS, I believe iOS has a couple of, like a ZTP option. I forgot what the protocol that they built for that. It's not POPE, that's for data center. Anyway, how do you get the router to make the request and send information about the router's serial? Hello, Nguyen. Cisco iOS XE comes with Linux guest shell that you can run scripts with. Totally get that. I guess when I'm thinking ZTP, I'm thinking like I power on the device without any provisioning or nothing. And that the router is going to send a request. Hey, I'm online. Hello, provision me somebody. How do you get the router to send a request to your API? Or do you have to log into the router? Or like, do you plug up a console cable to the router and then access the Linux guest shell and initiate the API request? Look at the ZTP script. It sends an HTTP post with the serial number in the body to Flask. Okay. Onboard device ZTP. All right, so let's look at this here. ZTP script. This runs within the router, correct? Within the router's Linux guest shell. If so, how do you get PyNetBox into it? I'm not looking at things. I'm just immediately talking out loud. So don't have to answer me. I might find that answer out clearly. When the router boots, it tries to get its config from a server, but can also request Python scripts. Very cool. Very cool. Import PyNetBox request.env. The other one, Jinja2, Nornir, Rich. Okay. Argument. Okay, so serial number being passed here. Loading your local environment. NetBox IP came from your environment. API key. Libra NMS. Okay. All right, so here's your connection to NetBox. Passing the IP and token. Here's your initialization of Nornir. Libra NMS. Headers, okay. So I'm assuming this is going to, yep. So this is going to load your, I'm thinking this is going to load data from the NetBox config context and pass it in through a Jinja2 template and return the configuration to the box like that. I'm assuming. We'll see here. Render template. Here's how I barely remember writing in this. Yeah, it's probably because ChatGPT wrote it for you. I'm kidding. Render Jinja2 template. Okay. Yep. Save config into the specified directory. All right. So you're creating an actual file here. Okay. That makes sense. ZTP config. Okay. Interface tasks. Interfaces task. Get interfaces. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Is this is just built into Nornir, right? Like this napalm get. I don't know if you imported that. Yeah, okay, it is built in. Okay, cool. That runs on the router. I'm definitely gonna check out the router one. Just want to make sure I get all this. Create interfaces netbox, creates interfaces in netbox based on information of the get interfaces getter. So this auto populates netbox. Okay. Assigns IP addresses to interfaces in netbox based on the information received by get interfaces. Okay, so it not only creates the interfaces, but it also creates the reservation by the interface itself. Okay. Add the device to Libre NMS. Boy, you're just like cutting out 18 jobs with this. Good stuff. Good stuff. I love this. So here's your config context. Okay, got it. Hostname, management IP. All right, load the Ginger 2 template path. Render the template. Save the config. That's going to give you your file. You're going to sleep for 30 seconds. Okay, interesting. Target Nornir filter hostname. Okay, so that's going to get you Nornir looking directly at your specific host. Results, get interfaces. Okay, getting IP address. Okay, and then you go through all those functions that we mentioned there. Very cool. And you're printing out to the console with nice, pretty colors and all kinds of goodies. All right. Let's look at the ZTP files. This will run on the actual router itself. All right. This makes more sense. So my question was originally like, how are you going to get, when I looked at the imports here, I'm like, how are you going to get these imports on a ZTP router? But you're not, because this is what you're importing. So I'm assuming this comes from Cisco itself, that they've got a library called CLI. Pan-GPT, that's what I was thinking of. Plug and play, right? That's what that is. Okay. Yeah, plug and play is the protocol that Cisco built for their ZTP stuff. All right. So point to your ZTP config file. Looking at your local NVMe. So CLI config command. Config replace blah 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 force ignore case. Interesting. Yeah, I had to look up what modules come pre-installed in Python 2.7. Oh, Cisco's got a, well, I guess they don't really care on some of the older iOS XEs, but they gotta upgrade that, man. If done and config REPL, config replaced, file transfer. Okay, so this is going to be to your web application. Excuse me, to your web application. This is your web server that we just looked at. So you're building a connection to it. Then you ask for the get config. But where do you send? This has got a template you can use. I just modified it a bit. Okay, cool. So here you're actually getting the config file itself. Get serial. Ah, okay. All right, so show version. Wow. It's pretty gnarly that you can send CLI commands during a ZTP process. Like, the way that I always viewed it, and maybe I'm just thinking about it incorrectly, but like, I always think like ZTP would happen before the operating system is like fully instantiated. But I guess that's just not the case with Cisco. With Cisco, the router comes online, it's available, but it's doing a ZTP process in the background. Arista works that way too. Arista has like the very first time you power on a router, if it doesn't have a configuration, it will assume it's in ZTP mode, where it will actively be trying to do some things, although the operating system is fully loaded. Which would make sense in this case, because now you're running Cisco iOS commands using the CLI, so the operating system would have been fully instantiated. So, oh, God bless it. Don't click on things, Calvin. Don't click on them. So cool. All right. So what's up with these timers? Seem pretty big, man. 90 minutes or 90 seconds. Yeah, I heard Arista does the same thing. Yeah, Arista's it's just a little bit, well, in some ways it's a little different. In some ways it's a lot similar. But Arista, they're using Fedora Linux, an unmodified kernel version of Fedora Linux. And so you could still do things in that Linux bootstrap mode before EOS actually loads. Where in this case, like iOS, when it boots up, you're not getting like a Linux shell, right? Yeah, I understand there's a Linux guest shell, but like it's not running inside of Linux-y itself. Doesn't matter. All right, system serial number, show version. Okay, so good old regex parsing out. That's the way of the world with Cisco boxes, and that's fine. Okay, now you're doing the post. So you post the serial information to this. Okay, yep. That's where the response, though, the response is going to have all the goodies, or most of the goodies. The actual config file comes from the file transfer. So the post is going to kick off the process that creates the file, the ZTP config file, based on information that was available through Netbox. And once that's done, so get serial, send serial, then do the file transfer. Okay. Yep. It's interesting that you've kind of duplicated this. I wonder if it is for a specific reason. Config replace. Man, this is good. This is good stuff, man. ZTP on Cisco is never my favorite thing to try to do. Just because especially before the Linux guest shell came out with iOS XE. Previously, it was very, very difficult. But this is awesome, man. Good job. The Flask file shows the route. There it is. Yep. Your path on board. Man, this is good stuff. Yeah. Yeah, like as long as you have the ability to talk through this, kind of share your thought process on it. Here you got some nice screenshots. This also helps. This also helps as well. Man, like I see this like kind of use case. I see tremendous value in this. Like Netbox has the onboarder plugin, but that only loads base level information, like what's the host operating system, what's its host name. It doesn't do anything around the interfaces, right? So while the onboarding program plugin is great at what it does, I never found it to be as useful as something like this. Because the idea that so hold up, so let me ask you, the config context, did you have all these variables listed in the config context? So it kind of went circular here. You staged the device in Netbox, you updated the interface configurations to the config context, but you actually didn't add the interfaces themselves. The Cisco router added the interfaces, or the Fast API or the Flask app added the interfaces based on the configuration that was pulled in through the config context. Is that right? I may have read that wrong. But like going the extra distance to auto add a device into a monitoring system, that's a nice touch, man. It's a nice touch. Having working on the vendor side quite a bit, what I've noticed is that a lot of people on the vendor side don't have an operator's background. And this tells me that you've got an operator's background. Like you understand that there's more than one thing to update, and sometimes those things to update are a pain. And so you're kind of accomplishing 3 different tasks in one shot, right? The ZTP of a router, the updating of your network source of truth, and the updating of your monitoring system. Yeah, I'd be pretty proud of this, man. I would. The config context was more of a baseline config stuff like SNMP, etc. Interfaces came from the router. Interfaces came from the router. It came from MSP land. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it shows, man. So 10.80, 10.1. That came from somewhere. You're saying it came from the router, but the router was in a ZTP phase, so the router got it from somewhere. Where is the somewhere? Was it all DHCP? Did you have... Couldn't be, because you wouldn't have a tunnel interface on DHCP. Would you? You probably wouldn't. No, you couldn't have, because you wouldn't have a DHCP server on each one of these interfaces. Like, these are all separate VLANs. And your DHCP server would probably not be handing out the .1. It's actually config context. Okay. All right. That makes sense. That's the right way. That's the right place to store it. Yeah, man. This is slick. This is good stuff, dude. This is good stuff. Yeah, again, the ability to document your workflow, the ability to talk it out, even in a pseudocode context. Just making sure that you understand what you're doing here. Generate config. So the generation of the config and the HTTP get of the config. Okay, that's probably where your sleep timers came in. You needed to give enough time to have the configuration generated before the GET request was sent out by the router. Device info, update info, add device to NMS. Yeah, man, this is good stuff. It's good stuff, dude. It's crazy. Like a couple of years ago, people have been like Flask. It's Flask and Django. I don't see as much Flask out there today, although I absolutely love Flask. You just don't see it coming out in new projects as much. It seems like everyone is like, what's the flavor of the month, right? The flavor of the month is Flask, now it's Django, now it's Fast API, now it's this, now it's that. It's like a never-ending constant loop. Goodness. All right, I don't know if we're gonna have a whole lot of time to dig in this. I need to prep for my customer call here just in a second, so I'm gonna drop off in like 5 minutes. But we did get a little bit better formatting, but I do need to find a way to control some of these logs that came in, because I don't want every single log that's generated to be forwarded over. I think that's the right way to do things. Yeah, one event should not have triggered this many alerts. Not at all. But what's kind of cool about this is that it's effectively extendable to any kind of use case that you have. So in my case, we're doing decryption, VPN logs, but this again could do threat logs. It could do data loss prevention. Really, any kind of security-based use case that you have, this could be extended to cover it. So what I really like about this again is it's more of an event-driven automation, which I see value in for those teams that have to constantly watch for log messages and get alerts. This is kind of a way of inserting ChatGPT kind of in the mix and using its knowledge to present you with the data in a place that you're already using, which in this case would be like a Slack application. What I'm really interested in though is like this idea of the previous app that we looked at. Just like if you hosted that internally on like a Kubernetes cluster and exposed it for the entire team to use. I kind of like it, man. I kind of like it. I'm going to see. I'm really curious if ChatGPT will follow a template if you gave it to it. Let's try it. How could we do that though? Within the request, let's turn up Overlord here. I want you to fill in data into this Jinja 2 template. All right. Host name, log message. Present the result structured as a code block. Host name will be router1 and log message will be this is a test. Oh goodness. Okay, all right. That worked really well. Let's do can you do it with JSON encoded values or with a Python dictionary? Yes, you should be able to. What does the body of my request look like? Okay, let's kind of clean this up a little bit here. Let's change this into JSON. Okay, this will be the Python dictionary. I know it's in JSON, but it'll be in the Python dictionary. The SNI will be google.com, and that will be just everything here. Source IP. All right, so this will effectively be the structure of the Python dictionary, and we want to feed it into the Jinja 2 template. So we'll create a new template to the right and say source user was trying to access destination IP, but the TLS decryption process failed for the SNI of SNI. All right, that should be good enough to test. Oops. Okay, again, this time use the following Python dictionary and Jinja 2 template. Oh my goodness. Okay. Really curious, when you do the request to ChatGPT, do you use system content first, then user content, or do you send the prompt with the event log together? I know I have them separated here. Let me look back into the script. It's been a couple of weeks. So messages, it looks like I'm sending the two messages. Body request, role user. Oh shoot, I need to go, guys. I need to go. This was a great idea because this worked. This worked really, really well. The code style it came back with, maybe I can change it again, but this time make sure the coded is structured in Markdown. The coded response. Do not add an explanation. Didn't really work. Okay. This is good though, man. This is really good. Oh man. Yeah, this opens up some really interesting opportunities, especially because I could add in like oh gosh, I could go to Emojipedia and let's say let's grab Cinco de Mayo is fine. We could grab the Cinco de Mayo, or just give me the Mexican flag. Give me taco. I love tacos. So we could copy this again, but this time use the following emoji. This is good. So Slack messages, it's well known that they are missing out on enough taco representation. So this really speaks to my heart. I love this. Wonderful. Maybe if you add a line break, it will follow. Include a line break after the 6th word. Every 6th word. Oh my gosh, it almost looks like a haiku. Again, but structure it as a haiku. Yeah, I think we're on to something here. I think we're really on to something. Tacos and haikus is the way that I want to read my log messages. Yeah, in the Ginger template, put the line break. Sure. Yep. The literal line break. I mean, just pasting a line break into a clear text string. It's smart enough to get it. Yeah. This really opens up the door because this is exactly what I want, right? I want a structured message that's going to be repeatable every single time. It's not going to fluctuate. So the idea of using a Ginger 2 template is perfect for this. I honestly did not think it would have the ability to do this. I don't know why I had that thought. I have no idea how I reached that conclusion, because this is definitely the way of getting precisely the right message, including tacos and haikus. This is wonderful. Yeah, right. Good game. It was fun while it lasted. I don't know. I'm gonna go back into bartending because this This is definitely going to be a threat. Yeah, not gonna be good. Well, thank you for sharing. This was a wonderful idea. I'm absolutely going to take it and run with it. And also thanks for jumping on the stream, guys, all of y'all. This was a really interesting conversation. I didn't expect this to be a conversation. This totally turned into a conversation. I really like what you're doing here with this. I'm gonna dust off my React skills and see if I can't dig into this just a little bit to figure out how we're making these things, or maybe I'll just use ChatGPT to explain to me how this is all compiled. And yeah, good idea about the plugins too. Oh my goodness. All right, anyway, I gotta jump. I gotta take out these dogs before my next meeting. But thanks again for jumping on the stream, everybody. This was a fun session. Didn't do a tremendous amount of code, but totally dug into a lot of code. I had a good time. So see you guys around.